So yeah, this is the first time Nintendo, I think, spoken publicly in Poland. And we're just going to kind of run you through the process of how you release your game on the eShop. I'm Ed Valiente, and I work in the European Publisher Business Department. So we take care of anyone from like Activision right down to one-man indies who want to release their games on our platform.
Hi everyone, my name is James Steele. I'm a software engineer for developer relations and support. Our job is to support developers. So if it's a technical issue you have working with our hardware or the SDKs or anything like that, it's my department or the department that I work for that will help you out.
Okay, so what is the eShop? So we have an eShop separately on the Wii U and Nintendo 3DS. Does anyone here own a Nintendo 3DS? Yay. Does anyone own a Wii U? Wow. More hands than last year, not many more. It's available in 24 countries in Europe, so you can get stuff you can pay in zloty. Even though we don't distribute hardware here ourselves, you can still release stuff as well. Currently, there's 515 applications on the 3DS eShop. So we have dual distribution, so you can release something at retail and digitally same day. We have a bunch of demos, 123 virtual console titles. And on Wii U, we've got 61 digital games so far. So as opposed to like an app store with millions of apps available, there's actually a good chance for you to get visibility on the store. So we work closely with the eShop team to help promote third-party games on the eShop. And we have like dedicated indie game shelves as well. So Nintendo is finally interested in working with indies. So since we announced like Unity and Nintendo Web Framework at GDC last year, this is kind of something that people often say to us, but we've had a bunch of indie games right since we launched WiiWare in 2008, and some of these games, like World of Goo, actually made their debut on our platform. So it's not really true that we're just starting out. It's perhaps we don't speak as loud as other companies and promoting it, but this is one of the reasons that we're coming to places like this to let you guys know how you can go about it. So I'm just going to tell you some of the policies just to like clarify some stuff for you. So you can self-publish. This has always been the case. We don't have concept approvals. So as long as your game would be rated by PEGI or USK or ESRB, you're fine to release it on our platform. You don't have to support any Nintendo-specific features. Although obviously, there are certain things that you want to take advantage of. So on the Wii U, we have like off-TV play, so you can play just without using the TV screen. And we have like the Miiverse as well, which I'll talk about as well a bit later on. We have no exclusivity requirements, and we have no parity clause. So we don't say you must launch your game the same time on our platform as you do on other platforms. We know that small developers, often you want to get one version done, and then you can move on to the next version while the other one's in certification or something like that. So there's no parity or exclusivity requirements. And we don't charge for any certification or patches or anything like that. So the only cost really to become a developer is getting hold of a dev kit. And unfortunately, I can't tell you how much a dev kit costs, so don't ask me afterwards because I'll say you need to have an NDA. And you can release your game in Europe and Australia. We cover the Australian region, and also the US. You don't have to have an office there or anything like that. If you want to release in Japan, you have to have a local office there, or you go through a partner which has an office there. So there's actually a Polish company, Teon. They've launched over 20 titles from the West in Japan. So if you guys ever want to release something there, you can speak to those guys. So what's new? We have something called the agency model now. So you set the release date and you set the price. And you can basically change the price whenever you want. So we don't do like, oh, Nintendo is organizing a sale now. That's up to you. So if you want to launch at like 50% off, or if you want to do a recurring sale every couple of months, you can just talk to us and we can help promote that. And we have like special offer shelves on the eShop. So you can always find stuff that's cheaper than before. We have competitive revenue share, that's basically industry standard. Again, for some reason, we're not allowed to say what that is, but you can imagine what it is because it's the same as everyone else. We used to have a sales threshold on WiiWare, which was not such a great thing. So you wouldn't get any revenue unless you sold a certain amount of units, but now you get revenue from the first unit you sell. And to become an approved developer used to be much harder than it is now. We've actually removed the office requirement. So as long as you can lock a dev kit, as long as there are 2 doors between the dev kit and outside, you're fine from working from home. And you can set up remote teams as well with other people. So you could be based here working with an artist in Sweden, the musician in the US or something like that. That's entirely fine as well. And yeah, we've got a flexible patching policy as well. So, and a variety of business models. So we have some games that are freemium, so you can download, say, like this Star Wars pinball game, so you can get that for free, and then you can buy like extra tables like DLC. So we offer all of that kind of stuff as well, and consumables and things like that. I'll hand over to James now. We'll talk a little bit more about the process for the tools we have and the process for actually getting your game through.
All right, thanks, Ed. So just before I get started, you can understand me, right? Because one of the problems I've had the last day is that because I'm Scottish, people they find it difficult to understand me. So you can understand me, right? Awesome. Right. So we'll get started off with the tools, or at least the new tools. How many of you here are Unity developers? Okay, excellent. What about HTML5? That's more than I expected. So anything else? Yeah? Okay. Brilliant. Well, that's great, because on the Wii U, we now have support for Unity, and we have something called Nintendo Web Framework, which is development with HTML5 and JavaScript. So I'll start off with covering some of the details for Unity. Now, it's equivalent to Unity Pro 4 on the Wii U. It's 4.2 right now. And as Unity add features to the Unity build on PC, Mac, and everything else, those features will, of course, come across to the Wii U version. The great thing about Unity for Wii U is it's Unity. It's also for the Wii U. And there's no license fee. We've already covered that for you. So you don't have to pay anything to use it, which is nice, right? What slide? Oh, that one. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see that. OK, and the next thing, of course, is Nintendo Web Framework. I mentioned already that it's developing with HTML5 and JavaScript. And it's pretty neat. One of the benefits that it has is it's got a very quick turnaround time in terms of iterative development. You know, you don't have to rebuild your source. You don't have to go through any funky build process. You can just change your application, run it, change it again, run it again. It's fairly fluid. Not only that, but there are a bunch of game engines available for Nintendo Web Framework. These are existing game engines, things like Enchant, Impact, Construct 2. Any of you guys use these? Yeah, awesome. So Construct 2 is available for Nintendo Web Framework, and it exports to that for you. So yeah, you want to apply straight away, right? Awesome. And also, there are a whole bunch of third-party libraries available for HTML5. You know, things like JSON and all those other groovy things like Box2D. You know, the JavaScript version of Box2D. Now, we don't offer any guarantees that it's going to work out the box, but it's JavaScript. I mean, how incompatible can it be? We've done some tests, and a fair few of these work no problem. But again, no guarantees, because I don't want to see online you guys saying, oh, it doesn't work, but James Steele said that it would. I can't offer you any guarantees, because you never know how that's going to change. So we also have native development. Are any of you guys working in C, C++? A few. Yeah, awesome. That's the way to go. Sorry, I'm a more traditional guy myself. Before Nintendo, I was a developer for about 12 years. doing stuff on PlayStation 2 and all the other jazz. So I'm more of a low-level guy myself. So okay, that covers all the available technologies, especially the newer ones like Unity and Web Framework. I guess maybe the next question is, well, how do I become a developer? How do I get hold of this stuff? That's the right slide. Okay, so your first step is to become a licensed developer, okay? As Ed has already mentioned, we've become a lot easier in approaching, and it's a lot easier to become a licensed developer for Nintendo platforms. It used to be that we had this requirement that you must have released 2 games before you were able to become a developer. We don't have that requirement anymore. Just out of interest, how many of you have released games before? 1, 2, 3, okay. And the rest of you may not have, but that's okay, that's not a barrier. You can, we don't discriminate like that anymore. So you register to become a developer. How do you do that? You actually visit one of 2 websites. For most of you, this would be the Wii U developers website. And I say this because for you guys without a lot of experience, we have a special route to make it a bit faster, a bit easier, to help us determine your needs. And this kind of leads on quite nicely to the next point, is that Ed has already mentioned the use of development hardware. I don't know if many of you know what it's like developing console, that you need special development hardware that can be kind of expensive, depends on what you're working on. How do you get hold of that? Well, that's the next slide. Get a dev kit. If you go through the Wii U developers track to becoming a developer, then we have something called the Special Introductory Program. What this is a special way to make it easier to get hold of development hardware. I can't tell you all the details, rather, it's a bit silly, I'm sorry. I would like to tell you how great it is, but we're able to tell you more details once you become an authorized developer. But to put shortly, it's just to make it easier to get hold of the hardware, okay? So once you've gotten your hardware, request the game code. It's a small step. Every game that actually released has unique code associated with it. And it's not difficult. You don't have to fulfill any special criteria. It's just a formality, so that when you submit your game, that you've already got this code and there are no delays. Because if you wait until when you finish developing your game to get the game code, it can be a bit problematic because there's typically a small delay involved. And we would like that not to happen. So get that straight away. Get it as soon as possible when you're developing.
I'll just add there that we can't force you to do that, but it's the first time that it gets on my radar is when a game code request. So if you want, if you want to work with us and like share a build so we can evaluate it and say, okay, yeah, this is worthy of support, it's best to just get it on our radar as quickly as possible. But because of like EU competition or and things like that, we don't demand that you do that. In the US, you have to fill something in called a project sheet. So actually just to kind of specify, like, you have to go through the same process for launching in the US, like separately through Nintendo of America. I think that's the same on some other platforms, but not all.
Okay, so the next step is make your game. I guess I don't have to tell you how to do that. You guys already know how you're going to go about that, okay? So you've made your game. What's next? So this is something that some people aren't so familiar with. We have a process called lot check. It's not really game testing like it says here. It's not, testing, all for bugs in your game or things like that. It's actually technical compliance. A really good example is your game has a save feature. What happens when there's no area left on the save memory and you can't make a save game? What happens? Well, on Nintendo consoles, actually in all consoles, there are guidelines that cover that sort of thing. And what we do is we make sure that your game, it fulfills these guidelines, fulfills these requirements. Now, one of the great things about Unity and Web Framework is a lot of the stuff is actually covered in the engines themselves. Not everything, but a lot of the more difficult ones like file system errors, save errors, that sort of thing. So it takes the burden off of you guys who do HTML5 or Unity apps. Once it's passed lot check, I'm sure all your titles will pass lot check first time, because I know you're going to read the guidelines and I know you're going to fulfill all the technical requirements.
Just so you know, I mean, we've had like big publishers that have been working with us for many, many years, and they're not any better at passing than someone who's never made a console game before. So I'm always surprised at that. But we did have a game recently that went through 10 times. So just to kind of reiterate, we don't do QA testing. So if we kind of find a crash bug, if we don't find it on the first submission and then we find it again, like we'll flag that. So don't expect us to be your QA provider. Sometimes we do see that, basically, people just sending us stuff way too early. One thing you can do with lot check is you can actually do a pre-lot check. So you can send that in early. For example, you have to have like an electronic manual and things like that. You can send those things in earlier so you can get an idea of how well you're doing at that stage. So I would always recommend doing a pre-lot check as well.
So the next step. Ed, do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, so we have so we have these kind of Excel forms that you fill in and you put the pricing information and everything like that. We give you like a pricing matrix that of what we would use, so for like euros, pounds, zloty, etc. But we don't automatically fill that in because under the agency model, that's up to you. And then you set a release date. So usually it takes 10 days from lot check approval to get on the eShop. So you send us all your assets and everything. One thing I would recommend doing, though, is rather than just saying, right, do that in 2 weeks, I would take an extra week and we can send you like 250 download codes for Europe that you can send out. You can use them for prizes and things like that, but you can also send them to media. So that way you can register the game on the shop a week early and you get your reviews that come out in time for the launch rather than a week or two later, because a lot of sites, they don't want to review something that's kind of everybody's already got. And then it launches. And hopefully the game's of decent quality that we can promote it on the front page of the eShop. We actually recently just started a monthly eShop newsletter, which we send to all Club Nintendo registrants across Europe, and soon for people who have a network ID. So we feature first and third party stuff as well. So we link that to like the game page that we have on our website. And one of my jobs as well is to try and convince our local markets to show games at events and working with people to get into Nintendo Direct. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Nintendo Direct. So, I mean, for example, like last year we had SteamWorld Dig, which is kind of really successful game on the 3DS eShop. We managed to get that in and released in time for the Nintendo Direct, and that really helped out. But launch isn't the end of the story. I guess those of you who have the device know what the Miiverse is. So the Miiverse is kind of it's what Mr. Iwata calls an empathy network. So it's not like a social graph. I don't know, like obviously I use social networks, but there's a lot of noise in the social networks, and not all of my friends are video game players. Whereas you know that if somebody has a 3DS or a Wii U, they like playing games and they like buying games. So you can kind of share your experiences. You can grab screenshots if you're stuck. So I was like early on when I got like trying to on launch, I was playing the game, and I went to the eShop. I went to the Miiverse, and I noticed that someone was stuck, and they posted a screenshot saying help. I'd just done that section, so I was able to like reply to that person's post, flag it as a spoiler in case people didn't want to see, and basically I got a load of years afterwards, and that made me feel good because I didn't know who this person was, but we both experienced the same thing, and I was able to help them out. Another cool thing with the Miiverse is that as a developer, you can have an official me, so you can basically communicate with your audience. And for example, so that goes live the day the game is launched, and people run like competitions and stuff like that, and can give away, like you can run like prizes and things. So it's like a really good way to keep people talking about your game and keep people engaged as well. And you can embed YouTube links and things like that. So if you've got a new cool new trailer, or there's like a cool Let's Play or something like that, you can like post to that as well, and then post screenshots. And if you then have a follow-up game for that, you can start promoting that as well. So here's just some examples of, I think that's Cloudberry Kingdom there. And the guys from Gaijin Games, they're very active as well, speaking to their community, running competitions and things like that. So well, we tried to make it like short because, I mean, it's just a process thing really, but if you've got any questions on anything, you can speak to me afterwards. I think James has to head off to the airport. Just drop me an email as well. And that's the link for the Wii U developer site. So if you have no experience, never even made a game or anything like that, you go through there and you can become approved. For 3DS side of things, or if you're like native coders, you should go to Wario World, which is our developer portal.
Yeah, it's our more kind of, it's the current portal we use for the more experienced traditional developers. The basic criteria is actually the same no matter which one you go through. If for you guys who don't have much experience actually go through the Wario World process, what may happen is you may get approved anyway, but you won't actually end up on the special introductory program. So, you know, make sure, just all of you, go through the Wii U developers side of things, just to make sure that you're eligible for that, okay?
So even though I'm like representing third party, we do have a team for second party, like first party stuff. So if you want to pitch projects to Nintendo for Nintendo to fund, that's possible as well. So, I mean, I can introduce you to the person responsible to that. He's a guy called Tim Simons. He's a lot of events as well, but we're not the easiest people to reach, and this is one of the reasons why we've really started going out there and trying to spread the message a bit more. But once you're introduced to us, we try and answer you very quickly. Like, I don't like to keep people waiting more than a day with a reply. So we're here to help, really. So, yeah, hopefully some of you guys might want to sign up and make games on Nintendo platforms. Thanks.
Okay.
Just before I head off to the airport, I can still hang around for a little bit if anyone has any questions that they want to ask. You don't have to ask like this. You can just come up to me afterwards, and that's okay. All right.
But in case anybody wants to ask like this, then you may do it now, of course. No questions in the public. Okay. Yes, there is a question. I will come to you with the mic.
Yeah, I know.
Please.
Okay, I'm actually a Wii U owner. I really love the device, and I think that I really want to develop something for it because I see potentiality in the gamepad. My curiosity goes directly to the engine. There is Unity 4, but it's written that the Wii U version is free of charge. I understand if I get the Wii U developer kit. So does information understand you can't give us how to get the developer kit? We have to get it on the website, right? Oh, okay. Second question is, what about Unity for 3DS?
Someone at GDC in an interview said, we're looking into it, but I think the correct answer is there are no plans at the moment, but plans can change. But yeah, so 3DS stuff is just, it's all native for the time being.
Okay, so let's suppose that I wish to develop for 3DS because it has an amazing install base, and so it sounds like a good idea, and the competition on the indie there is not as tough as on iOS, for example. Which engines or editors or programs can I use to, because since as a developer I know Unity, and I feel very comfortable there, but I can't use it. So where do I go? What's your suggestion? Like, what's this?
That's a very tough one. So, excuse me, my throat's a bit dry. Okay, so there's not a lot of options, to be quite honest, because there aren't a lot of developers right there working on 3DS, and it is a very specialized bit of hardware. However, for the graphics side, for Wii U and 3DS, we have something called NintendoWare. And what NintendoWare is, it handles all the rendering stuff and all the scene management, and then you can build your application or your game on top of that for 3DS or Wii U. And we provide that free of charge. In fact, it's actually what's used by some of the first-party titles. Like, I don't know actually, I couldn't tell you which games actually use it from Nintendo ourselves, but it's the same code that's used in some of these titles. So we have that we provide and that we support. In terms of third-party stuff, that if you're more used to like a managed environment like Unity provides, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, probably because there is nothing, because the reason that Unity is not happening for 3DS is it's just not suited to the machine. But if you want to get into native development, then NintendoWare's there for you, and it's actually pretty groovy. It's not too bad. It's pretty good.
And I'd say also there's a lot of people with experience working on DS and 3DS out there, and it could be worth speaking to some other developers who are active on the platform, and they might be able to say port it for you. So that's an option as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
So if I want to be a licensed Nintendo developer, do I still need to have a company, or can I just be a single person?
You can be a single person. Yeah.
Oh.
I think for the US, once you get to the publisher agreement stage, you have to have VAT number and everything like that. But that's kind of your responsibility to pay your local taxes and everything. So you can just be one person, sole trader. That's fine as well. Thank you.
Thank you.